Welcome on into week 8 already in the NFL. Hard to believe. Was just downstairs watching some NBA basketball. Regular season has started. College basketball is back in about 12 days as well. So we're really in the middle of football season here. But each and every week we're getting closer and closer to what we build all year for, and that's the playoffs. Learning more and more about teams, and storylines are coming out each and every week. Are the Colts the best team in the NFL right now, led by Daniel Jones? We're going to talk about the Ravens and Lamar Jackson this week at 1-5. Can he, coming off an injury, lead this team back to the playoffs after their slow start? The Cowboys' offense looks unstoppable so far. They're playing a really good Broncos defense this weekend, and we got a revenge game potentially with Aaron Rodgers hosting the Packers, his first game against the Packers since he left that organization. A lot of storylines to cover this week. NFL Week 8 preview. Hard to believe, as I said, about halfway through the season already. But Kev, welcome back. How are we? And football is really in full swing now.
Yeah, no, it definitely is a lot of fun matchups this weekend, going through the list that we're going to talk about, just seeing the different storylines and stuff, super exciting, and just a lot of stuff that probably people weren't picking to start the year that we've seen so far.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the beauty of it each and every year. I think going into the year, actually, like I heard some people saying their favorite bet was the Houston Texans to win the division. I think the Texans now sit at 2-4, and the Colts sit there at 6-1. And I'd imagine they probably have the highest odds of any team to win their division currently. They are minus 330, the Colts, to win the AFC South right now. Next closest team is the Bucks at minus 320. So that just goes to show you no one was picking the Colts. They're looking amazing. New England Patriots, a lot of people were high on them coming into the year to go like 9-8, 10-7. They're looking like a team that could win 12 games with how easy their schedule is down the stretch and how good they've looked. Eagles back at minus 255. The Commanders are fighting a bunch of injuries right now. So some things change, some things stay the same. I'm going to be very interested to see if the Eagles can end that streak with the division championships with the no repeat winners. But a lot to get into this week, as you talked about. And we're going to start on Thursday night this week with the Vikings at 3-3, coming off a loss at home last week to the Eagles. Carson Wentz will be getting the start again. I would have to imagine his last start before J.J. McCarthy, for the Vikings' sake, is hopefully back in the fold. They'll be traveling out to L.A. to play the Chargers here on Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime, 8:15 Eastern kickoff. Chargers sitting there at 4-3. Chargers minus 2.5, over under 43.5. Justin Herbert coming off his highest passing yard game of his NFL career, but also a couple head scratching throws. A lot of those were kind of garbage time yards at the end of the game. But if you watch the film, that offensive line has really been struggling. The running game, I think, definitely took a step back last week, and the defense, which was awesome last year, I think is battling some injuries and isn't as good this year. When it started out looking like a really hot start for the Chargers, it's starting to, I'm not going to say completely fall apart, Kev, but they're starting to look at more and more like the Chargers of old. Do you think they can right the ship on Thursday night at home against the Vikings?
Yeah, I think they can right the ship definitely this week. I don't know about for the rest of the year. I definitely wouldn't take that bet. But this week I have them winning 21-17, so they cover the 2.5 they're getting, under 43.5. The Vikings come into this game led by their defense, which is top 10 in scoring. And they also have some great metrics in other critical situations, like they're second in third and fourth down defense in the red zone. And nearly 70% of their defensive possessions end up in not allowing any points at all, which is second best in the league, which is kind of a crazy stat. 70% of the time that the other team touches the ball, they don't get any points. But with that being said, it's going to be Carson Wentz again on Thursday. So just for that reason alone, I'm going to go with the Chargers, because I do like Herbert more than Wentz. But that's also not saying a ton, because I really don't like either of them. If you've listened to before, you know I'm definitely not the biggest Herbert fan in the world. It is super impressive. He looks like he was built in a lab to be a franchise quarterback, and he's able to move the ball up and down the field. And he's currently leading the league in passing yards, but we are in year 6 now, and we're still waiting for those yards to translate into points and wins. The Chargers are only scoring 21 points a game, which is good for 20th in the league. Their defense is getting a little bit healthier, getting some key players back, and they're a decent group. So I think they'll be able to slow down Wentz and not give up a ton of points, and Herbert will be able to do enough to lead the Chargers to victory here.
Yeah, watching that game against the Eagles on Sunday, there definitely was a few wow Carson Wentz moments where you're like, this is really, what kind of ran him out of being a full-time starting quarterback. And it would be funny too when it would flash over to Kevin O'Connell on the sideline. He would just have kind of that shocked, look on his face, like, really, we're really still doing this. And it's pretty amazing to me still how Wentz got kind of thrown in here. Like, he got signed after training camp. It was pretty, dumbfounded how they went through a whole training camp and then just brought him in. I don't know if that was an under the table agreement or whatever, but he's had a big role in the team thus far with McCarthy going down after a second game. If he's able to get a win here and get them to 4-3 until McCarthy's come back, I think Carson Wentz has done his job. Like, you couldn't really be expecting that much from him at this stage of the game. And the Carson Wentz also in his NFL career, 7-0 on Thursday Night Football. So this is a guy who's had some success in this situation before. But you kind of said it best where, you might not be the biggest Herbert fan. You're definitely not the biggest Wentz fan at this stage of his career. But who in this situation are you going to trust more? I'm going to go with Herbert at home. Have a little more faith that Carson Wentz makes one or two more boneheaded decisions that cost him in this game. I think this is an ugly game, a lower scoring game. Could be one of those games that people are questioning why they're even football fans, I think, by the end of it. But I'm going to go Chargers 23, Vikings 20. So Chargers minus 2.5, under 43.5. Short week at home, a coin flips type of game. I'll always side with the home team there. All right, let's go to Sunday now. We go to the 1 o'clock window. Bears at 4-2 are on a bit of a roll after starting out 0-2. They're 4-0 over their last 4 games. They're 4-0 against the spread in those games. They'll be traveling to the Ravens, who are 1-5. Ravens are a team in full-out desperation mode now, coming off the bye. Lamar is back at practice. It sounds like he's going to be in the lineup, in the mix. 1 o'clock kick on CBS. Ravens, 6.5-point favorite here, over under 49.5. As a 1-5 team hosting a 4-2 team, I think that goes to show you everything that you need to know about this matchup. But interested in your thoughts on this game, Kev.
Yeah, no, I thought this one was pretty simple. If Lamar plays, I'm going to take the Ravens. If he ends up not being able to go, I'll go with the Bears. Like you said, it sounds like Lamar's going to be playing this week. He was back at practice today. The Bears have been running the ball super effectively and efficiently recently, which has taken a lot of pressure off of Caleb. And Cooper Rush just is not going to be able to win this game if it's him. He's yet to throw a TD this year. He had 4 picks in the games he started. And then without Lamar, the Ravens just aren't able to move the ball. But obviously, if he plays, I'm picking the Ravens. I know their defense has not lived up to expectations this year, but I think just Lamar himself being back on the offense is more than enough to beat this Bears team. When he was playing, the Ravens offense was actually pretty solid, moving the ball, scoring a lot. They just had some untimely turnovers on that side of the ball. So Lamar's back this week, it sounds like. I'm going Ravens winning 23-17. Bears do end up covering, but the under at 49.5 hits as well.
Yeah, the Ravens, I know Lamar coming back this week. Obviously, that's a major boost to that team, to that organization. But for them to be a 6.5-point favorite still caught my eye. Vegas really loves it and respects this Ravens squad. Going into the year, obviously, they were Super Bowl favorites. They've had a lot of injuries. Obviously, the Lamar injury, too, hasn't helped their cause that much over the past few weeks, having to play Cooper Rush. But this is still a team that Vegas loves to win the division. They're plus 145 to win the division, sitting here at 1-5 overall. The Steelers just ahead of them at plus 120. Those two teams still get to match up down the stretch. So if the Steelers have a pretty epic collapse and the Ravens are able to catch fire, this is going to be a big time, come from behind story to come and win the division. And go whatever, say what you want about them in this scenario where it's like, all right, they were the Super Bowl favorite coming into the year. I'm not going to feel bad for them starting 1-5 and having to come back. But anytime you get kicked down like the Ravens have and off to this slow 1-5 start after that crazy week 1 game that they fall short to the Bills, and after all the hype this offseason, the defense hasn't lived up to the hype. Derrick Henry's had his fair share of struggles as well. For the Ravens to kind of, face all this adversity and still be plus 145 here to win the division, Vegas really respects his team, and, they know more. They're usually more right than they are wrong. So, I would say buy a little bit of a Raven stock right now and start with this game. I'm not going to take them to cover because I do think the Bears are a legit squad that we're going to see in the playoffs at the end of the day. But I do like the Ravens to win, and we know the numbers too with Lamar historically against NFC opponents. So give me the Ravens to win this one, 27-23. Bears plus 6.5 over 49.5. All right, we go to a 1 o'clock game on Fox. This is one of those games where we're at this point in the season where, looking at the schedule at the beginning of the year, you would have not really thought much about the Bills at 4-2, at the Panthers who are 4-3. But here we are, the Panthers in the mix for a playoff spot. Bryce Young does not practice today. He left the game early last week. But it's a Panthers team that's won 3 games in a row. They're, on the outside looking in for the playoffs right now, but it's a team that looks like I think is going to hover around 8-9 wins and potentially be vying for one of those wild card spots. And the Bears, just like the Eagles after starting 4-0, or excuse me, the Bills after starting 4-0, like the Eagles, they dropped their next 2 games, but they had their bye last week. See if they're able to right some of their wrongs. They're a 7.5 point favorite here, over under 46.5. If I had to bet Bryce Young's not going to play this week, it sounds like it was a high ankle sprain. So Andy Dalton most likely in the fold for Carolina this weekend.
Yeah, I'm going Bills 24, Panthers 20. So the Panthers do cover the 7.5, under 46.5. Yeah, as you kind of already touched on, the Bills lost their last 2 games, coming off the bye now, and then they get a Panthers team that's kind of rolling here, winning 3 straight. And the reason they've kind of been winning, I think, is due to their running game. They've been running the ball exceptionally well as of recently, thanks in large part to Rico Dowdle, who has 468 yards on 70 carries the past 3 weeks. And then if the Bills do have a weakness, it's obviously their run defense, which has given up over 156 yards a game, which is second worst in the NFL. But with that being said, I don't know if I'm going to be trusting Andy Dalton to beat Josh Allen, because he's probably going to be starting this week, like you said. And now I think about it, I actually do know I'm not going to trust Andy Dalton to beat Josh Allen. I think the Bills' offense is just way too much, way too many weapons. They're way too good. Josh Allen's way too good. I think the Panthers' rushing attack will allow them to cover here and keep the game semi-close on the scoreboard, but I don't think it's ever really going to be in question who's going to win this game. So I'm going Bills winning, but Panthers do cover.
Yeah, I think this is one of those matchups where you really just kind of keep it simple. You touched on it. Are you going to trust Andy Dalton, even at home, to beat Josh Allen? I don't think so, especially with the Bills coming off 2 straight losses, the Bills coming off a bye week. The Bills might be one of my favorite plays on the board this week, not just to win, but to cover that 7.5 as well. I think if you haven't used them in Survivor either, I think this is a good opportunity to do so. Bryce Young has a little bit of that kind of swag, that it factor to him, and he's been, I think, willing the Panthers to some of these wins. A lot of them have been come from behind wins. I don't know if Andy Dalton necessarily is going to insert that same magic into this lineup. So I really like the the Bills to come out of this one with an outright win and cover in that 7.5 point spread. I think it's a get right spot for them, and I think they win this one pretty comfortably. Give me Bills 31, Panthers 21. So Bills minus 7.5 over 46.5. All right, probably the game I'm looking forward to the most in the afternoon slate this week. Cowboys 3-1, traveling to Denver to play the 5-2 Broncos for a 4:25 kick on CBS. Broncos 2.5 point favorite, over under 49.5. Kev, do you like the Broncos after last week's crazy win to get another win here at home?
Yeah, no, I'm going with the Cowboys this week, 34-27. Cowboys plus 2.5, over 49.5. The Cowboys offense is awesome, and then they are going again up against the Broncos defense that's pretty great, been pretty solid all year. Dak Prescott has now thrown 3 TDs in 4 straight games and has completed 71% of his passes on the year. He's really just playing at a high level, the Cowboys' whole offense is. And he's also only got 3 picks this year, but again, going up against a Broncos defense, that's pretty good. They lead the league in sacks this year with 34. And then as for the Broncos offense and Bo Nix, I think they've been a little too inconsistent this year, but they have shown that they can score when needed, a la last weekend in the fourth quarter, just going off on the Giants. I think they had 4 straight drives with touchdowns to end the game there. And then for this week, though, I think the Cowboys come out hot against the Broncos D. That wasn't great last week. The Giants did kind of have their way early in the game, and I think this week the Cowboys are able to build up a little bit of a lead here early in the game, and it's big enough that they're not very good defense is able to hold on. I think Dak has another stellar day, and the Cowboys come out victorious in a high-scoring game.
Yeah, I'm going to go with one of my upsets of the week here with the Cowboys traveling out to Denver and winning this game outright. I know they just lost 2 weeks ago to the Panthers, but this Cowboys offense is humming on all cylinders. Top 10 in basically every offensive category, top 5 in most. Dak Prescott, I think, playing the best ball of his career. You got CeeDee Lamb back in the fold now. George Pickens has been awesome all year. Jake Ferguson's maybe been the best tight end in the NFL this season. And hell, even Javonte Williams is looking like probably the steal of free agency on the offensive side of the ball at the running back spot. It's a very deep and versatile offensive group. And those numbers might be a little bit inflated because you touched on it, how bad their defense has been. But I think this offense is going to give this team a chance each and every week. Sitting here at 3-3-1, I think they're about as average as you can get because the offense is so great, the defense is so bad. But at the end of the day, I'm going to trust this Cowboys offense, I think, more times than not. And I do think there's a scenario and a pathway for Dallas to find themselves in the playoffs. I think it would have to be via the wild card. But if you're going to be a playoff team, this is a game that you go out there and win. I think a potential statement win. So I like the Cowboys to go to Denver this week. The Broncos, as you touched on, coming off that crazy come from behind victory, crazy come from behind effort. One of those games where I think it evens out potentially the next week. Like when the Eagles beat the Rams, when they probably shouldn't have, then they lose to the Broncos after dominating them for most of the game. Some of these things I think tend to even out at the end of the day here in the NFL. And the Broncos exerted all that energy, all that effort to win last week. Maybe a little bit back of a come back to earth type of game this week. So give me the Cowboys to win 31-24. Cowboys plus 2.5 over 49.5 there. All right, and the game of the week, I think this is going to be one of the top 5 rated games in the NFL this season. Packers at 4-1-1 will travel to Pittsburgh to play the 4-2 Steelers. 8:20 kick Sunday Night Football on NBC. Green Bay 2.5-point favorite here. Over under is 44.5. Aaron Rodgers, as we know, the Steelers quarterback now, first matchup against the Packers, 4-time MVP there, 1-time Super Bowl winner, one of the best quarterbacks in league history. Pretty cool scenario here on Sunday Night Football with everyone to say.
Yeah, I'm going Packers winning a close, low-scoring game, 23-21. So the Steelers do cover under 44.5. I haven't been super impressed with either of these teams so far. I don't think either of them have lived up to the hype. I don't think the Steelers' defense has lived up to the hype, and I don't think the Packers have lived up to the hype on really either side of the ball for them. Both teams have shown flashes that they can be really good, and their records are still very good. The Steelers are 4-2, Packers 4-1-1. But it is hard for me to pick which team I think is going to show up on Sunday for both of them, as I think they've been highly inconsistent. But for the Packers, I do like Matt LaFleur a lot. I think he's going to be able to scheme up some big plays for Jordan Love and his young receivers. But the Packers are just one of 3 teams to not record a against the spread win yet this year. And then we always hear the stats about Mike Tomlin against the spread as a home dog. He's 21-7-3. So I think the Steelers keep it close and cover here, but I think the Packers end up winning this game.
I love the Steelers in this spot. You touched on it, but Mike Tomlin at home as an underdog is money. You know, if you want to take him just against the spread, you could do that. But I think they win this one outright, 21-7-3 against the spread as a home underdog, as you touched on. And it's a great spot, too. I think this Packers team is a little overrated. You look at who they've beat this year. Besides that win against Detroit, they've beaten all mediocre to below average squads. They lost to the Browns, inexcusable loss right there. They barely beat the Cardinals last week. They've flirted with losing to the Cowboys. They've beaten basically all kind of inferior opponents thus far this season. I think we need to see a little bit more. I'm still not fully bought in on this Green Bay team, and this is a tough spot. Anytime you go to Pittsburgh, especially for a night game, that's not an easy spot. You know Aaron Rodgers is going to have kind of revenge on his mind. He said it today where, I love the organization. I have a lot of respect for them. There's still so many people over there that I used to work with, that I used to play with. Like, I'm not buying that. He's got that kind of alpha mindset, that cold killer type of mindset. I think he takes this one personally. The Packers might have given up on him a little bit too prematurely. I think he wants to prove, and everything with Jordan Love and their great relationship. There's still a little bit of, if there's a competitor in you want to go out there and outperform the guy that took your job. There's no beating around the bush in this situation. Jordan Love was drafted to replace Aaron Rodgers, and it could just been the end of an era. He was going to be replaced eventually, but Aaron Rodgers still has that in the back of his mind. Mike Tomlin at home against a spread, one of the best in the NFL during his NFL career, as an underdog as well, 21-7-3, as you touched on. it just everything in this spot kind of screams the Steelers for me. So I'm going to take them to win this one outright at home, 24-21. So Steelers plus 2.5, and we'll go with the over of 44.5 as well. All right, final picks of the week, our touchdown parlay, our dog of the day, our lock of the week, touchdown parlay. Pick a primetime score and then a Sunday afternoon score, 2 each. So I'll get us started here. My Sunday afternoon score, I'm going to go Jalen Hurts minus 125. Hasn't scored the last couple of weeks. Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown has been one of the best historical bets in the NFL since Jalen Hurts came into the league. I think this week they get back on track with a nice tush push, get him in there from like the 1 or the 2 yard line, and he finds pay dirt.
Yeah, my Sunday afternoon game, I'm actually going the same game as you, but I'm going Cam Scatterboo minus 115 against the Birds. He had 3 tutties against us 2 weeks ago, and I think he gets more chances this week.
All right, my night game, I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs minus 190. Just keep it plain and simple there. He seems to find the end zone each and every week. I was looking to take Jonathan Taylor for my afternoon game. He was minus 310. I think we've gotten to the stage where Josh Jacobs should even be kind of in that ballpark. I think last week he was minus 220 or something. But Josh Jacobs minus 190. This guy finds the end zone pretty much every week.
Yeah, for mine, I am going DK Metcalf. He's been on a scoring machine. He scored it almost every week this year. He didn't score last week. I think he gets in the end zone this week.
All right, our dog of the day. Last week I went with the Cowboys against the Commanders. I was an outright winner. See if we can keep it rolling here. 49ers plus 1.5 at the Texans. I just don't understand how the Texans can be a favorite at this stage of the season. They've looked absolutely terrible. One of the most disappointing teams in the league thus far. The 49ers have a bunch of injuries. I understand that, but so they're finding ways to win. Beat the Falcons on Sunday night. I think that they win at Houston on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I really liked that one too. It was kind of the only one I really liked. So I'm going to double dip here. We both had the Cowboys to cover against the Broncos for all the reasons we talked about before. They're just super great offense. So I'm going Cowboys plus 2.5 against the Broncos, but I also do really like the 49ers plus 1.5 against the Texans.
All right, our lock of the week, our favorite bet of the week, I went Cowboys Commanders over. Last week, that soared over. This week, I'm going to go to Philadelphia. Eagles minus 7.5 at home versus the Giants. Listen, the Giants just beat up on it and punked the Eagles 2 weeks ago on Thursday Night Football. Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterboo definitely made their presence felt. But that loss last week to the Broncos in the fashion that they lost, that's a tough one to get back up on. And especially having just played the Eagles fresh wound in that scenario. They have revenge on their mind. They've won 12 straight at home against the Giants. I saw as well today. I think it's a game where the Eagles kind of, punish the Giants for the fashion that they lost to them on Thursday Night Football 2 weeks ago. And the Eagles kind of ride into the bye feeling high. I think the Eagles win this one very comfortably, 2 touchdowns plus. I'm going to say it. So even look to potentially lay an alternate spread. I love them minus the 7.5 this week. If you haven't used them yet in the Survivor, they're my pick this week as well. So go Birds this week. I think they dominate from start to finish.
Yeah, my lock of the week, I'm going Chiefs minus 12.5 against the Commanders. I think they just blow them out here. I don't think the game's ever in question. Kind of like Kansas City did last week against the Raiders. No Jaden Daniels for the Commanders. I don't think this game's going to be close.
All right, that'll do it for the NFL Week 8 picks and preview here at Beef Up Front. As always, everyone, thank you for tuning in. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe to the channel. We actually got a bunch of new people coming in and doing some work on the channel now. We got a bunch of new NBA content coming out. We're gonna have some college basketball stuff coming out, as always, college football too. So we're gonna have more and more videos on the channel. If you haven't hopped on already, please like, please subscribe, and we'll talk to you guys next week.